Recording, and Lou Brown, take it on. Over.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 speeches from either the traditional or Pathways programs, or you must have substantive, relevant presentation experience that you demonstrate to us in a 3 to 5 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to board approval. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. Right-click on your panel and select Rename to do so. We have members and oftentimes guests from many different countries around the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we are recording the meeting. Your video and audio contributions may be used for our club marketing purposes. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking so as not to interrupt our speakers. Today's theme is Mad as a March Hare. Please welcome our presiding officer, distinguished Toastmaster, I believe, Vice President Membership, Elaine Nieberding.
Well, I just happen to be a dynamic leadership level 4, but I'm working toward that DTM thing. It'll come along at the right time. Greetings, everyone, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and replay viewers. We have an exciting evening ahead with Nick Lahani kicking things off. I'm going to turn things over to him straight away.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to today's meeting. And before we make a start, I just wanted to confirm, Diane, are you able to be chat monitor, please? As Monica's not here. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, we're going to start our meeting today. And today's theme is to be as mad as a March hare. Now, I'm not going to talk about all things animal and go into some sort of real analysis of what the March hare is and why it does what it does. A March hare, this particular phrase is an idiom. An idiom, there you go, an idiom is a noun or manner of speaking or a turn of phrase. And the source for that is thesaurus.com. Go there, lots of really good words. Now, this particular idiom, it talks about the hare behaving really in a funny, sort of funny ha-ha, in a really weird manner in March, because that's when mating season is. And some of you may realize that March hare was in Alice in Wonderland. Now, so what? I hear you ask. So what? What has this got to do with online presenters, Advanced Toastmasters Online Club? I put to you, ladies and gentlemen, that this particular idiom is very British, very European-centric, and I could even actually give you a picture of the March hare. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more information about the March hare on the chat so you can actually have a look at it at your leisure. But the point I want to make today is it's springtime in March in the UK and Europe, not where some of you live. So therefore, if you do have hares in your country, they would actually be maybe September hares. Not so catchy, is it? That's the point. When we speak, be authentic to yourself, be authentic to your language, your phraseology, your terminology, your culture, but don't be afraid to not just entertain us, but also inform and educate us so that we can learn more. Do not speak like everybody else, speak as yourself, but please inform, educate, and thus entertain us. That's the main point of today. Think about what you're saying, but have fun doing it today. I have lots of helpers helping me today, and I'm going to bring them up one by one, and we're going to actually explain what they're going to do. First of all, I'd like to welcome to the virtual lectern timer John Quick.
Mr. Toastmaster, as a timer, I'll be keeping track of how long everything takes today and interjecting when necessary to keep things on schedule. I've got a little bit of a light situation with a clock for those of you who really like to keep track of what you're doing. I'm going to use some verbal cues for our speakers. If you're a speaker tonight and you don't want the verbal cues, type a big no in the chat right now. Otherwise, I'll say something like yellow when it's yellow for you. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. I really wanted to put the audibles in following a request last week from one of our guests. So well done for that. Our next helper is going to be our counter. Please welcome Louis Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, as our counter, I am responsible for observing those clutch words a lot of us use every day in our language, and sentence starters like and, but, so. Clutch words are o, sounds a little dirty, but that's not what our club is about. I will provide a report at the end of the meeting on all of the clutch words and insufficient sentence starters that we use. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Louis. Our next helper is grammarian Tiger McCandy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My role today is to make note of excellent usage of the language and also in those rare occasions if there's any egregious use of the language. The word of the day is insane. My favorite sentence using insane is to do the same thing over and over and expect different results is insane.
Thank you for that, Tiger. That really is going to not only be insane, but hopefully will drive everybody insane too today. Our next helper is our watcher. Please welcome Marty.
Hello, Toastmasters. It is my honor to be the watcher. This is a position I've never held before because no club has ever had it that I've been a member of. But I shall do my best to admire the ambience of our club. And at the end, I will offer a brief report on how wonderful it is. On the off chance there's something really wrong, of course, I will say that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Thank you. ABL, always be learning. So well done for stepping up with that. Now, our next helper, again, a last minute stand-in again. Please welcome our chat monitor, Diane Rubino.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm just going to be following the chat and seeing what's happening and reporting back in the summary at the end of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Our next helper, please welcome vote counter, Carol Krahinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster Nick. I am going to be insane with this vote counting. I'm located in Florida, so expect some crazy results. And I am excited to be able to deliver them. Just remember, at the end of the speeches, vote for your best, what you thought was the best speaker. At the end of the table topics, vote for the person who you thought did the best job in table topics. And third, at the end of the evaluator session, we have 3 evaluators too, vote for your best evaluator and get those votes to me under V, not normally for victory, this time it's under V for vote counter. Send them over, have a great day. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, and be insane about it. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Carol. Now, just before our speeches, I just wanted to explain to visitors that we have our prepared speeches first, and then we have our table topics, And then our general evaluator takes over to get reports from all the role players and also give their evaluation of the meeting as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is to start the first segment, which is the prepared speeches. First speaker is Christopher Hulse. Chris is doing his 40th Toastmasters speech today in pursuit of his DTM, and this speech is going towards his Advanced Communicator Gold Award. This speech project is called Speaking in Praise, in which Chris has to deliver a 5 to 7 minute speech praising or honoring someone either living or dead. With a speech titled Pop Pop, please give a very warm welcome to Christopher Hulse.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, up to this point in my life, I haven't had much experience with death. I'm the oldest child of the oldest child of the oldest child, so I feel like I'm pretty close in age to my elders. Despite all that, I could say the death that has affected me the most is that of my grandfather, whom I affectionately called Papa. To say he was a colorful man of conflicting attributes would definitely be an understatement. Papa had some dark undertones to his existence, which begs the question, can you love and admire someone who does things that go against your own moral code? My grandfather, Morton Francis Hulse Sr., was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut in the United States on December 18th, 1931. He grew up the oldest of 3 boys in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. When he was in high school, he played football, which was always fascinating to me because I'm not really into sports much. And after high school, he entered Penn State University, which at the time was one of the few colleges with a veterinary science program. He actually joined a frat, which ironically enough, his fraternity paddle sits like 2 feet from me every time I'm on here making a speech, next to my own fraternity paddle from when I went to Penn State. Now, he never finished college because when he was in there, it was right around the time of the Korean War. So he decided to join the US Navy, which took him to the Central American country of Panama, where my grandmother lived. Now, as a little kid, you know, they tend to ask a lot of questions, and I would always ask them, how did you meet Grammy? And Papa, always trying to be the funny guy, and mostly inappropriate, would always answer me, and I quote, I met your grandmother topless in a grass skirt saying, take me to the USA. And as a 5-year-old, thinking that was a funny story, I would tell as many people as possible, especially other 5-year-olds. So much so that the teacher would call my parents and say, could you please get your son to stop telling this story about his grandfather meeting his wife topless? So while they were still in Panama, they had their first kid, my dad, which that was a unique situation because at the time, it was called the Panama Canal Zone, which was a 10-mile wide strip on both sides of the Panama Canal. So even though my dad wasn't born on American soil, he is considered a citizen because that was owned by the United States, which interestingly is the same situation John McCain ran into. Sometimes people would bring that up when he was running for president of the United States. So they moved back to Pennsylvania and had a total of 4 kids. And while he was raising a family, he sold insurance, which was like family practice back then. Now, one of the things I admired about my grandfather was he successfully changed his career several times, which really wasn't common practice back then. So when his kids grew up, he got out of the insurance industry, and he decided he was going to raise pigs on a 60-acre farm he bought with my grandmother. And actually, as a 1-year-old, I got a pet pig named Coke. I mean, how many like 1-year-olds can say they have a pet pig to their name? So, but shortly after they decided to start raising pigs, my grandfather was approached by the federal government to testify against somebody he had done business with who was actually in the mafia. And as he said to me, quote, I didn't want to wear cement shoes, so he chose not to testify. But in doing that, the government decided to keep a close watch on him, and they actually nabbed him for something called mail fraud and racketeering, in which he went to prison for 5 years. Now, that's not really a normal thing for a kid to talk about. I mean, most other kids were talking about their grandparents taking them to the park or for ice cream. And I would say something like, well, mine's in federal prison, and we play tic-tac-toe through the mail. until my parents told me to stop mentioning that. So after jail, he, went back to the big farm, and that kind of went by the wayside, and actually decided to go raise a different animal, bees. So he became a beekeeper. And right around the same time, they decided to start flipping houses before, flipping houses was cool. And the company was so successful, it actually gave me my first job when I was 12. And it also gave my mom and my aunt a job. But all that taught me an important lesson about working with your family and how that often creates conflict for everyone. Now, I'd always been told my grandfather did shady business dealings, but I'm sure a lot was kept from me. But I was fully aware of the situation that my mom was in when she was on the receiving end of his shadiness. He told her, my grandfather told her to apply for unemployment compensation and then pay it back to the company illegally. And as he said, quote, being in the family, it was like putting money back what was rightfully ours to begin with. But then what ended up happening was when the unemployment compensation ran out, my grandfather fired my mom, thereby guaranteeing that she couldn't collect unemployment compensation. So around the age of 60, my grandfather decided that he was going to have a new career again. This time he was going to be a paralegal. He spent so much time in the courts, he thought it would be beneficial to be on the other side. So let's see. Up to this point, he had been a veterinary student, a sailor, an insurance salesman, a pig farmer, a beekeeper, a house flipper, and a paralegal student. But the last thing was not meant to be. His last career move ended up being antiquing, in which he became a shop owner. And he did that for about 20 years, right up until when he died on December 5th, 2015, 13 days shy of his 84th birthday. Now that he's gone, I struggle with the kind of man that Pop-Up was. He was definitely a good grandfather, but I only knew him through his accomplishments. And although he didn't want to be admired, he also lived his life with a lot of unfulfilled promises, depending on how you look at it. Case in point, when I was little, I was fascinated with the state of Alaska and getting to visit there. And my grandfather promised me that we would go there together when I turned 12. Well, that came and passed and never happened. But now that is the only state I've never been to, having been to all the other 49. My grandmother gave my grandfather's favorite pair of shoes to me when he died. And they don't even fit me, they're too big. But yet, for the past 2 years, I've worn them around as if I was walking in his shoes. And therein lies the struggle. I guess we could all have dark undertones sometimes, and I happen to wear mine on my feet. But I still admire my Pop-Up and the things he tried to accomplish in his almost 84 years. I hope someday I'll get to Alaska with his shoes on my feet and finally fulfill a promise he gave me all those years ago. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Chris. If anybody wants to give feedback to Chris, please feel free to use the chat, either in public or private to Chris. In terms of feedback, we all love feedback. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our second speaker, Joy Knudsen. Joy is proud of her Finnish nationality, even though she has not lived there since the 1980s. However, whenever she has a possibility, she informs people in other countries about Finland. With a speech titled, "Are Finnish school kids the best in the world?" Please give a very warm hand for Joy Knudsen.
Thank you. When people hear that I am originally from Finland, they always find something they know about Finland. And this even happened in this little mountain town in Ecuador, where I spent a lot of time in January and February. And the two things they typically know about Finland is Nokia and that the Finnish school kids or the educational system is best in the world. And I get this very ambivalent feeling when I hear this, because none of this is true. Both of these were true maybe 15, 20 years ago. But for example, Nokia, it was one of the first big cell phone companies But now it has big problems, and I think that the management is hoping and looking for some international buyers so that the company would survive. And as to the school kids, the 15-year-old students who are tested every 3 years by OECD's PISA assessments, where all OECD countries participate, the Finnish students are doing worse and worse. And it's actually, since the last time these were made, the assessments, the decline was the biggest of all these OECD countries. And only Australia was about this, at the same level in this deterioration. And that makes me think that those people who are in charge of branding of Finland, they did a very good job when Finland was performing very well 10, 15 years ago. Because still all over the world, people know these two things about Finland. And at that time, when Finland was performing very well, especially the school kids, delegations from all over the world traveled to Finland to study this miracle. How are Finns doing this, that the kids are so smart? And there were several, or the main elements they found out were that the teachers were very, very well educated. They had university education, and which was research-based. And in some countries, they even thought that teachers had very good salaries and had very good reputation, but that's not true. They actually earn about $10,000 less a year than American teachers. And the living expenses are about 30% more in Finland than in the US. And the second element was that there is a national core curriculum, which is then translated by municipalities into municipal core curriculums. And then schools can even then adapt to these municipal curriculums. Because the teachers are so well educated, they can use their own skills to tailor-make the education better to those kids that they have. And there is a hope, and hopefully also a tendency that the best teachers would be teaching the weakest kids, because that is an international fact that this gives good results. And the third element was that school days were very short in Finland, about 4-5 hours. And the kids didn't have any or very little homework. And I would add to that, I didn't find it in my background research today, but there are also two other elements, that the kids get free meals at school and some snacks even. And then there are breaks so that they can get some physical exercise and fresh air during the school days. But these elements have remained the same throughout the year. And anyhow, the kids in Finland are now performing worse than other kids. And it's not just in relative terms, because of course other countries, I mean, when they have been studying what have been done in other places, they have then started competing and getting better and better. And if somebody gets better, somebody scores lower in this international ranking. By the way, US has all the time when these assessments have been made, been somewhere between 20 and 30, never better. So, but we have, so there's no reason to go and study any of these best performing countries. Right now it is Singapore, that's the best, and Chinese is almost at the same level. And they have different systems than Finland. So it's not the school system as such that makes any difference. But during these last 20 years when these assessments have been made, we have accumulated a lot of knowledge that can be used by all countries without traveling anywhere. And one of the things that we know by now is that equity is very important, that all kids should have a possibility to go to a free school And this is not the case in many countries yet, where they have private schools and public schools and all kinds of mixtures. And that there should be some kind of core curriculum these kids should be going through, so that their brain potential could be used to its optimal level. Because we really need more intelligent kids all over the world with all these challenges we have with climate change and other things. And the problem, the main problem found in this assessment is that, in fact, the literacy is deteriorating all over the world. And in average, 1 in 10 kids doesn't understand what's the difference between a fact and an opinion. And this is the crucial skill in this digital age, where we can find information all over, and we are collecting information from many different sources, and fake news are so prevalent also in earlier good newspapers and news channels. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Joy. Thank you for that. And again, please give feedback to Joy either through the public chat or private chat. It'll be, I'm sure, gratefully received. Our next speaker, a special guest today, is Sarah Gao. Sarah intends to apply for membership after this meeting today. And as there was a slot free and she had a speech in her back pocket, we like those, she actually has slot number 3. Sarah Gao joined Toastmasters in 2012, and she just gained her DTM in February this year. She is VP Education of Bell Noontime Toastmasters, her home club in Philadelphia, USA, with a speech titled, "Are you ready for coronavirus?" Please give a very warm hand for Sarah Gao.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody at Online Presenter Toastmasters. Today, I'm going to talk about coronavirus. If you haven't read from the news already, this is a virus that's spreading around the world, disrupting travels and people's daily life. Since end of December, beginning of January, China has been battling this virus. And in end of February, we had a turning point where the increases of confirmed cases outside China is larger than inside China. So now it is not only a bad situation for one country, it is a global emergency. However, if you follow the news, you will see there's 2 types of very different opinion. One type is people in China and experts saying this is an extreme situation and we need extreme measurement. Cities locked down, almost the whole nation quarantined at home. Over 300 million children are taking online classes because school is not opening. On the other hand, if you follow the news in the US, people are more relaxed. This is just another type of flu. If you compare the fatality from flu season and the coronaviruses, the flu is worse. What exactly is coronavirus? How bad is the situation? How can we make sure that we are ready? That's what I'm going to talk about tonight from my research. Let me show you what I have here. My screen should pop up. There you go. This is how coronavirus looks like. Coronavirus.
Sarah, we're currently seeing your file manager rather than the slide that you want us to see.
Okay, how can I change that?
If you click on stop sharing,
Okay. Stop sharing.
and then share again the actual program that you want to share.
I wasn't sure if it will allow me to change. Okay, can you see my slides now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So coronavirus is actually a very big family of viruses. And the reason it gets corona as a name is it has all these coron looking hooks on it. And a different type of hooks attack different part of the body. And this particular coronavirus we're talking about now, COVID-19, attacks your lung. So when it hooks on your lung, it starts to kill the normal lung cells, which make permanent damage and cause people to die if it gets really serious. And I want to show you how bad it is. Are you able to see this page right now?
We're seeing
With
the PowerPoint presentation with the picture on.
Okay, because I'm trying to show you. That's why I try to show the whole PC.
You might want to just, the first option for sharing is share your desktop. So it'll just share whatever you're seeing rather than sharing a specific application.
That's what I did the first time and didn't work. So let's try again. If I do that, will you be able? Okay, let me do this. This shows you how bad it is on a global scale. And the point is, it's coming. And if you look at the latest situation in the US, we're seeing cases increasing in California and Washington states. I believe it's not about whether coronavirus will come to you, it is about when. So the next question to answer, how can we prepare ourselves? How can we make sure we're ready? And first of all, what you can prepare is to be ready to stock some basic appliances at home. The most effective way of battling the coronavirus is actually a simple method. It's by washing hands. A lot of people, you might be wondering, if you see the news, you will be able to see a lot of people actually wearing masks. Is that really necessary? The thing is, a surgical mask like this won't help you, but it still works to some extent because it helps you to accidentally touching your nose and mouth. That's how the virus spread. Do you know that we actually touch our mouth and nose more than 90 times a day? So we don't need this type of special N95 masks. That's for professionals because the edges are sealed. If you wash hands on a regular basis and use sanitizer, if you don't have soaps available, hand sanitizer with alcohol more than 60%, then that's a big help already. Finally, last but not the least, a good night's sleep will help you boost your immune system. And here is some resources from my research in case you want to read more and get ready for yourself and for your whole family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. you handled that very well. You had some issues, but you overcome them. Fabulous job. Well done. And I was really happy that you actually did your first speech here today. Now, we're going to hear from our timer about times. Did they all qualify, Mr. Quick?
Everyone qualifies, Mr. Toastmaster.
Fabulous. So please, can you send your votes for best speaker? You have 3 options: Christopher, Joy, and Sarah. Please send them by private chat to our vote counter, Carol Prohinsky. If you look down the list, she'll be at the very bottom as vote contra Carol. Now, if you can do that, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is the impromptu speaking. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce for the next 12 minutes our table topics master, Tricia Smith.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I did not get to vote for the speaker yet. I'm moving kind of slow in the chat box, so I'll have to catch up on that. I'm going to be choosing 3 people or more, and preferably anybody who has not had any kind of participation in the meeting. So I have a few names. I think everyone that is new was asked if they were willing to participate, and I think everyone said yes. So if I call your name and you don't want to participate, just say so. I'm going to say Travis Prescott. I think you may be new. Are you interested in helping with the table topic tonight?
Sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, great. So I'll give you this. If you could please finish this statement. It goes along with the theme tonight. I'm as mad as blank blank. And just explain a situation that you've had experience with, current or past, and how you observed it by somebody else or your own personal experience.
Okay. Well, my first thought is to say, when you say blank blank, I think I'm mad as Donald Trump. But the second part of your question is to an experience that relates to me or someone else, and that's a little trickier. Well, how about a time where I've been mad as a hatter, which kind of goes in with the March Hare, Alice in Wonderland theme. I'm a little bit of an odd person, I think. I would certainly say that. And there have just been times that in my personal relationships, I've been angry about something, and then maybe a day later, maybe a couple days later, I start to discuss it with my partner and then realize I don't actually remember what it was that I was mad about. And that reminds me a little bit of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland, which is, by the way, my favorite character in Alice in Wonderland. Because there's a time where they keep going over this riddle, like how is a raven like a writing desk? And it's a big deal for a big portion of that scene. And then at some point, the topic shifts and they come back to this. He has no idea what she's talking about at all. And I can relate to that. And hopefully that doesn't mean I'm insane. But there are definitely times where I get all worked up about something and then find that given even just a little bit of time, I can't remember what it was I was mad about in the first place. It's Madden Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Okay, the next person I'd like to ask to participate, Andrew Byrne. Do I have the last name right? Andrew? Hey, Andrew, are you interested in participating? Awesome. Okay, here's your question, your topic, Andrew. Answer this, please. I'm mad enough to blank, and you can explain a situation that describes that.
Thank you very much for your question. This came up just the other day when I was in physical therapy. My physical therapist was working on me. I was recovering, still I am recovering from a broken leg. And he informed me that his child was hospitalized at Coral Springs Medical Center, not too far from here, with what started out was a flu, then progressed to asthma and a pneumonia. And in the course of the conversation, it came up that he chose not to give his kids the influenza protection. He did not give them flu shots. Nobody in the family had flu shots. And this gets me very upset when I see preventable diseases not being prevented by parents that are not well informed. And we have a problem. If you look at not too long ago at Disney, when a case of measles was brought into this country and interacted with a whole bunch of people at Disneyland, that spread of measles took place and was spread from California, Nevada, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon, all from that one index of a person that had contracted measles and never was vaccinated. That gets me very upset. I started my practice in medicine when people were not getting vaccinations. And I saw measles and chickenpox and all these other diseases quite frequently amongst the pediatric population. Thank God the vast number of people have been vaccinated, and we don't see this as commonly in the emergency department. So when I see somebody that gets sick with these diseases and find out that they didn't take any precautions, it gets me very, very upset. A recent case was one of my coworkers who came down with the shingles, and she never took the shingles vaccination. Thank you very much, Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. Okay, I've got one more person, I believe, unless I have more time, that I'm going to pick for the third topic. And if I could ask Mike Walsh, are you interested in participating with that? Are you with us?
Yep, sure.
Okay, awesome. Hello. All right, here's your question or topic. Can you please describe a time when you witnessed someone or yourself go into a frenzy when they or you didn't get your way with something and how the situation resulted?
Madam Table Topics Master and fellow Toastmasters, that was Friday, and that was me. I went into a frenzy. Now, if it was daylight out here, I would spin the camera around and you can see the winter wonderland that's happening. That I'm still on Friday. Let me describe what happened. I'm waiting for spring. Now, I know down south spring happens a little earlier. I'm always an optimist. And I'm looking at the weather and I'm looking at my phone and I can see the temperatures rising. All week I've been looking at this. I've been looking out at the deck. I've been looking at all of the unplowed, unshoveled, unblown snow that's everywhere because spring's coming. Why would I do that? Why would I clean up? And of course, first thing on Wednesday morning, the temperature began to change. The weather began to change, and sure enough, we got the full-blown snowstorm came all the way through. It ruined my plans to not shovel anymore this year. I ended up having to go out and shovel the deck, and I'm looking at the snow, and I'm thinking, This afternoon, Madam Toastmaster, I began looking for properties in Mexico. Yes, I'll change my mind when the weather gets a little better, but for right now, I think I'm just going to get mad at the snow and the weather. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. That was good. I agree with you about the winter. Spring fever around here, for sure. Cabin fever. I think I can ask for the vote for the best table topics. If
Actually,
that's the next step, or, sorry, go ahead.
You have time for one more quick one.
Oh,
Off you
okay.
go.
I prepared for that. I can do that. Okay, awesome. Let's see. Sorry. How about Carol Pransky? Did I say that right? Carol?
She's already got a role.
Oh, sorry. All right. I don't know if I have anybody who doesn't have a role then that I have on my list.
A contestant tonight. I haven't been a contestant in Table Topics for months. Is that possible?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Hi, Carol. All right.
Hi.
Let's see what we have for you. I'm going to say, describe a time when you felt like going bonkers.
Bonkers. Thank you. A time where I felt like going bonkers. I am a woman who matured in the candy industry. Bonkers is the name of a candy that came out. It's similar to Starburst, and it was produced in New York. I worked for Nabisco at a plant in Cambridge, Massachusetts that made Charleston Chews, Sugar Daddies, Sugar Babies, Pom-Poms, Junior Mints, and Pom-Poms, by the way, are now called Junior Caramels, chocolate covered raisins, and chocolate covered peanuts. And at the time, Nabisco also owned plants in New York, and we made a whole bunch of other products. Anyway, good stuff. And so when I hear a time that I was going bonkers, all I'm thinking about is sugar and the craziness that develops from a sugar addiction. So off I go, and I'm getting insane with all that sugar that I'm eating because I was good at distinguishing the quality of the Junior Mints and the Charleston Chews. And even though I didn't like some of that product, I still was good at it. And so they would give it to me saying, what do you think about this particular product? And I would say, oh, this is good, this is no good. And so I had to evaluate them. At some point you get tired of that and you just want to do your regular job, which in my case at that time, I was a supervisor at the manufacturing plant. And I got to tell people, hey, get back to work and so forth. And meanwhile, how do I go bonkers? Well, I go bonkers now, today, outside of the candy manufacturing environment. I go bonkers when I see my students doing all the beautiful things that they do. I just get all excited. I was seeing today that I had an email back from 2019 from a former student telling me how bonkers he was and exactly quoting me on some of the quotations that I had given him, such as I polish my rough diamonds and make them shiny. He quoted me. And I'm like, that makes me bonkers because I'm thinking how exciting it is that he is even remembering enough to think about me and send me an email. It gets me all excited and fun. So thank you for asking. I pass it back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you so much. Now you just made us all hungry for all those sweets. I think we can ask for the vote now. Is that the next step? That's okay. Please vote for your favorite Table Topics person, and I will give it back to the main Toastmaster, please.
Thank you very much, Tricia. Thank you for Table Topics. We managed to get 4 speakers in there. If you want the times, have a look at the chat. I do believe they all qualified according to that. Well, I'm going to make an executive decision. They all do. So please vote for one of Travis, Andy, Mike, or Carol, please. Send a private chat to Carol, and don't be surprised if she wins. No, just kidding. Please send a private chat to Carol for your vote. Now, I'm sure you'll agree with me. We had the speaking section, we had the table topics, and I personally have been informed, educated, and entertained. So thank you all for that. We now go to our 3rd segment, which is our evaluation segment. We have our general evaluator, Elaine, who has 20 minutes, not only to give her evaluation herself, but also call upon all the other evaluators put together. So please give a warm welcome for our general evaluator today, Elaine Nieberding.
Everyone, I am calm. I am very calm. Even though I just heard a bonkers story, that absolutely warmed my heart. The way this evaluation section goes, we'll first call on the 3 evaluators for the 3 speeches of the day. Then I'll be calling on the functionary role reports, and then I'll give my general evaluation. So first, I would like to call on David Carr, who evaluated our first speaker, Christopher Hulse. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Elaine. Fellow Toastmasters and Christopher. Christopher, you had the courage to come on and give a speech talking directly to the camera. And I think that can actually be quite impressive, as opposed to leaning on special effects, green screen, razzmatazz, or presentation slides. So that's good when you're trying to focus on telling a story. You have an interesting story here. You've got definitely a colorful character. This was a speaking in praise speech. And at some points, I was a little bit puzzled about whether this was really praise. He's an interesting character, but did you admire him? I'm not quite sure. It seemed like there was more of a positive note towards the end, and I'm not quite sure. I might have missed something about when you were talking about going off to meet him, and you had the thing with the shoes, and so that may have been me not paying close enough attention. In terms of your on-camera presence, you don't have a. I feel like maybe you don't have strong enough lighting in the room. Your image is actually a little bit grainy. Sorry, my phone's ringing. One of the things that I liked the most was that you had this thing about, I went off and told all my friends in kindergarten or whatever it was in grade school about, you know, my crazy grandpa's story. And then it came up something similar a little bit later. And then my parents told me to stop saying that. And I think if you could maybe have found a 3rd or 4th occasion to work that kind of a theme in. And, you know, so it sort of depends on whether there is a 3rd or 4th occasion where you could have worked that into your story. That kind of coming back and calling back to the same phrase can be effective in tying a speech together. The guidelines from Toastmasters International for this speech say something about finding 5 aspects of the person's character and story to tell us about. You had at least that in the speech, so that was good. You had a lot of variety here. I wanted to hear a little bit more vocal variety, perhaps, and emotion coming through to clue me into how you felt about these things when this incident happened with your mother and the uninsurance. Were you upset? Were you angry about that? I didn't get that from the way you delivered your speech. But it was certainly a great speech. If this was, what was it, number 40? I'm very impressed by what you've developed here, and I look forward to your next speech. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, David. At this point, I would like to call on the 2nd evaluator, Mr. Jim Barber, evaluating Joy Knudsen. Please give your report, Jim.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, my fellow Toastmasters, our guests, and especially Toastmaster Joy Knudsen. Are Finnish school kids the best in the world? The purpose of your project, Joy, was to connect with your audience, and congratulations, you did that. 4 stars. You were great in doing this, and I judge that by a great deal of your speech I watched in gallery view because I wanted to watch not you, but everybody else. And they were following you. They weren't zoning out. They weren't looking elsewhere. They were following what you were saying. They were interested. You held them. You connected with your audience. Congratulations. Now, let me talk for a couple of moments about how you connected with them. One way you did that was with your content. This was a well-researched presentation. It was well-structured. It was well-written. Everything about it was solid. It was good. It was a good report, and that helped us to connect with you, helped you to connect with everybody else. The other side of that is the presentation, and I want to talk a few moments about that. You speak with an accent, a wonderful Scandinavian accent, and that's not surprising in an international club like this. Sometimes, though, we have some members, I won't name names, where their accent interferes a little bit with their communication. It's hard for us to understand through their accent. You do not have that problem. Your diction, your pacing, your volume, everything vocal was working great. I understood everything that you were saying, and I think everybody else understood you very, very well. And that's commendable in all cases, but when you're speaking with an accent, that is extra commendable. Congratulations, fabulous. I have several suggestions for improvement, and it's just that, just a thing of improving a little bit. First of all, I loved your background of the students in a classroom. That was great. However, it was a little bit busy and detracted a little bit from your presence. I would like to see that same picture, but if you could use Photoshop or something to darken it a little bit or to blur it, that would provide a little more contrast with you. Especially, I said I was watching a lot in gallery view, but when I was watching in speaker view, you have a tendency, it doesn't show up so much in gallery view, but in speaker view, you look over the camera. You're looking up here rather than looking at the camera itself. Don't do that. Try to maintain eye contact with the camera itself. Again, that's a good way to connect with the audience. And the third thing, it's a little thing, but your closing was good. I would like to have seen something a little bit stronger, but this was a great presentation. And get ready, I don't want the timer to get mad at me, so I will finish. Get it? Finish, finish. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Madam General Evaluator.
Just when you don't expect it, Jim delivers a grand finish. Let's move on to the third evaluation. Graham Carnes will be evaluating our last speaker, our guest speaker, Sarah Gao. Take it away, Graham.
Crikey, Madam General Evaluator, and Cobbers, I'll try not to let my accent get in the way too much. Seriously, allow me to commend our speaker tonight on doing exactly what it was that she was requested to do by this particular project. This project is the research and present, to go out and find information and to present it in a way that means that the audience follows what it is that you are saying and the point that you are trying to make. And I commend Sarah on doing this. Excellent use of resources. I did have a note here saying it would be really good if you shared the sources, but then of course at the end of the speech she shared those sources, which is one of the things that she is asked to do. What I would suggest in an online environment, and we are here in online presenters, so this is something that everybody can take on board, I would hope, don't just present those sources as a screenshot. Place them into the chat box so that we can all save them and access those sources later, because there is some great resource material in there that, quite frankly, I'm going to steal and use for some of my presentations as well. On the subject of slides, a really good use of slides eventually. And it's unfortunate that I have to use that word eventually. And I know that Sarah is concerned about what went wrong and working out how to do it, because she has asked for advice after this meeting, which we will give. I'm not going to give too many details in this evaluation, except to say, for those that might be watching this on replay, if you open the slide or the screen that you wish to share before you hit screen share, then that's what will come up first. So open it in the background, have it ready to go, then go to screen share and it will open first. But we'll talk about that after the meeting. That's one of the suggestions for using screen share. And I should say that the use of those slides, though, I thought was particularly effective. I've seen images of the coronavirus, but now I know why it is called a coronavirus. That crown shape on the top became much easier. I loved the material from the New York Times showing where the coronavirus has had its impact. But what I loved most about this speech, and what I think is the one point that I would take away from it, is that it was important that Sarah made the point that this is a potential crisis, but we should not panic. We should be prepared. The name of the speech was, "Are you prepared for the coronavirus?" And she gave us the information that we need to be prepared. With a research and present speech like this one, that's particularly effective. Let us know what it is that we need to know. And that's the only other observation I would make about this speech in terms of improvement. Had Sarah started at the very beginning with, "This is the point that I intend to make," and then finished with that point, we would have known up front what it was that we should be looking for. But I really enjoyed the presentation, and I'm going to go through those sources with a fine-tooth comb. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
3 excellent evaluations. I'd like to ask the timer now, did all of our evaluators qualify to receive a consideration for vote?
Madam General Evaluator, everyone qualified, and I'll be doing 1-minute timings on our functionary reports.
Okay, please send your vote for either Jim Barber, David Carr, or Graham to our vote counter, Carol. Right now, I'd like to call on for the functionary roll reports. Lou Brown, give us a counter report.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Everyone did very well overall. There was a couple of ums and double clutches, you know, here and there. Sentence starters seemed to be a continuing issue with our club. There was some ands and some so's, and even a couple of and so's. With our table topics contestants, speakers, I was very impressed that although there were words about mad and bonkers and being upset, no one used the F word. Furious. So well done there. Again, overall, excellent job. And I turn control back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lou. Now I'd like to call on Tiger, our grammarian.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I'm going to share with you some terms and some words that I found to be impressive. Case in point, colorful character, commendable. Last but not least, international assessment, functionary. Furious, excellent use of resources, a fine-tooth comb. A speech in the back pocket, I always find that to be humorous. Spring fever, bonkers. The word extroverted, the word frenzy, and preventable diseases. What we did not hear tonight, unfortunately, was the word insane, and I thought we had multiple chances to throw it in there, but it got used very little. Thank you very much, General Evaluator. Miss General Evaluator.
Thank you, Tiger. We have an objection here from Vote Counter Carol, which said, "I sure said insane." And maybe some of you noticed, but moving right along, Diane Rubino, please give us a report on chat activity today.
Hi there. The chat activity was moderate. I must say that in previous meetings, the chat has driven me insane when people are joking back and forth while someone who's prepared their speech is not getting their full attention. So I think that relative to past meetings, this was seemed more professional. That's all.
Thank you very much, Diane Rubino. And lastly, we'll call on one of our newer members, Marty, who was our watcher for the evening. Marty, tell us something distinctive that stood out about our lighting, our frames, our use of the frames. What stuck out to you today? Marty, please unmute.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, indeed.
Very good. I have great trouble coming up with anything outstanding because the entire meeting was outstanding. I was absolutely delighted. I almost found myself believing that I was in the room with all you folks. I enjoyed the presentations. I enjoyed the activities. I really can't think of anything that we could have done better. This is a wonderful club. Back to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Have I missed any of the functionary reports? I guess not. So I'm going to...
Do you want the vote?
Oh, well.
I can go
that would be a
bonkers over
grand
here.
idea. Vote counter Carol. Would you give us a report on who the winners are for
let's go
the night?
insane. Let's go insane. Yeah. All right. So we have some votes. We have lots of votes, and people just loved our speakers today. And we loved our evaluators today. And we just gave hugs to all the table topics people. So winner today, Christopher Hulse. Congratulations on Best Speaker. Woohoo! And I can't wait to hear the other 5. Our Best Evaluator, congratulations, Graham Carnes. Nice job. And people were saying all of you did very well. And so it was a tough choice, but Graham pulled it ahead. And the last one, table topics, well, I crushed it. I don't think that surprises you. No, I'm kidding. I did crush it, but I really enjoyed them. Thank you so much for letting me play. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Indeed, in times of trouble, like when coronavirus is going on in the world, you can choose like insanity or peace and calm, and play is a great bridge between the two. So thank you for bringing that up. This evening, I was really thrilled with each of the presentations by our speakers. Chris, I loved the variety of the stories about Pop Pop. What stuck out to me were the words that you used at the end. He had unfulfilled promise. He had done all these different things, but you demonstrated your connection to him by sharing that you got his shoes and even wore them. That was stellar. For our guest speaker, Sarah, kudos to you for stepping up, helping us prepare for coronavirus, and with pretty much calm, just flowing through, finding your slides, and allowing yourself to receive help from this fine fellowship in this club. The next person that I want to mention is Joy. Joy, I was especially thrilled that you brought up this whole idea of a country having branding. Now, I didn't even know that Nokia was Finnish. I thought it was Japanese. Who knew? But you absolutely did have us curious about Finnish education, and indeed you were transparent that Finnish education wasn't what it was cracked up to be. We've kept on time. We had lots of humor throughout the evening. That was well done. Our functionary reports moved along quickly, so that was excellent. And this is the end of my general evaluators report. Now at this moment, I'm going to put on my other hat, and that is of presiding officer. And at this time, I'd like to call on each of our guests one at a time to just get a little feedback about your experience being here with us for online presenters this evening. Travis, would you unmute, please? Share a little feedback.
Yeah, I enjoyed the meeting. I've been having some connection issues in the second half of the meeting where the presenters, the video would cut out and the sound would cut out. So I think I'm gonna probably reset my network connection before the next meeting to hopefully stave that off. But I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I look forward to coming again.
Thank you so much for being with us. And a reminder to everyone, typically within a day or two after the meeting, either on the Online Presenters YouTube channel or on video replay, the replay is up for your edification and entertainment. Now I'd like to call on Carl Walsh. Hi there, Carl. How do you enjoy tonight's meeting? Please unmute. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It's helping me a lot since I'm just getting myself introduced into this field of on-camera internet communication to see the different ways that everybody does it. And even Sarah, God bless you, Sarah, the trouble that you had, I'm going to learn a whole bunch from that. And so even that was very, very valuable. And I appreciate all the good work that everybody did.
My last guest is Sarah. Sarah, share a couple words with us. We're so glad you participated so fully this evening.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And this is my second visit, and it already feels like a home club to me. And the fact that people from everywhere can meet online and share information and learn from each other, this is a dream come true. So thank you so much, everybody, for all the advice that you give me. It's really a pleasure, and look forward to become a member.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to call on our treasurer, David Carr, first to talk about membership renewals, and then John Quick to talk about upcoming contests.
Okay, well, just a quick reminder, there is a main menu link on our site that says renew. I think we have it lit up in red right now, so it's hard to miss. If you could stop by there and pay if you haven't already done so. I think most, if not everybody online, most everybody online has already renewed. So thank you very much. And if you haven't, please get that taken care of fairly soon. Thanks.
And John Quick.
Madam Presiding Officer, for March 9th, that's next week, we need a Toastmaster. Is anybody willing to volunteer for that now?
Deborah Carr is stepping up. Thank you, Deborah.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Deborah. I'll put your name in. Everybody else, go to our website and sign up, because we've got lots of open roles for next week. We have two contests coming up. A video speech contest, that's like the formal international contest for online clubs on March 23rd. We really need a contest master and a chief judge. So if that could be you, get in touch with me. We also have on April 20th, webinar contest. That's more of our own unique club contest where we focus more on the online environment. That one, we also need a contest master and chief judge. Madam Presiding Officer.
Thank you so much, John. I'd now like to pass this back on over to our Toastmaster of the day, Nick, to close things out.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I just wanted to say this has been a mad meeting. This has been insane. It's also been educational, somewhat entertaining, but also in terms of, I've forgotten the other word I said earlier anyway. The point is, have a think and reflect upon the messages that we had. We had three wonderful speakers. We had three equally wonderful evaluators, and the functionaries did very well as well. Give a big hand to everybody, and I look forward to seeing you in the after game show. back to you, Madam Presiding Officer.
With that, we will stop our recording for the evening, and we will see you next week